I said, that's all right, they had no drinks. He was, I mean, I've flown so many times it doesn't matter, but this time he just took off. Obviously, what do we call cross shear?
Yeah.
You could feel it.
Hi, Dave.
I'm sorry I didn't explain that to you.
We've had a few of those too, where there's been a strong shear wind, and
Yeah.
they have to bring the plane in at such a high speed to compensate. You think this guy's going right into the ground.
Oh, no, he has to bring it down real quick,
Craig, is that
Well,
you?
you're a pilot, you know.
right?
And I'm like,
I thought you were flying. I was gonna go up there, knock on the door. Hey, Clark, get out of there.
Stop shaking the place.
oh boy.
Put that rudder up.
We would fly, we'd take off just before we reach the hill. Kind of push it down just a little too hard, and then everything off the floor comes right up, so you can see if there's pencils or coins in the plane. Your passengers hate it. It only lasts for a couple seconds.
It's just the weightlessness.
Yeah, just the top of the crest, right?
That was a loaded question, I think.
Was that how they trained it?
Set in the right arc, so they go
Yes, it
down, they come up, and then they would just arc to the just.
So you know what, John, I'm gonna go on Saturday. I'll
And then,
stop in the
then
box
when you
office
pull
there.
up, you put in two or three
Yeah,
Gs.
in the
And
seasons?
then to
Okay.
1G and then
Okay.
to 0, and that's, just kept doing the arcs like that all day long till,
Until they got nice nauseated.
yeah, they call it the vomit comet. That's what most people throw.
Richard, you ready?
Oh boy.
Good evening, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, staff. I see that we have quorum, and I call this regular meeting for the Town of Pelham Council for Tuesday, May 22nd, 2012, to order. We will begin with an invocation led by Councillor Kersey, followed by the singing of the national anthem led by Councillor Papp. All rise.
Shall we pray? Lord, give us this day your strength and courage to do your will. Grant that the members of Pelham Council demonstrate humility, listen with an open mind, and show wisdom in all their deliberations and matters of business placed before them. Bring to this council honor, trust, and dignity to work on behalf of all people of the town of Pelham. Amen. Amen.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patron all, in all thy sons command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Councillor Kersey, Councillor Papp, and all. First item is adoption of the agenda. It's been moved by Councillor Ribbiak, seconded by Councillor Durley, that the agenda for the May 22nd, 2012 regular meeting of council be adopted. Any changes to the agenda? Councillor Ribbiak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With regret, I won't be making a Canada Day or Communities in Bloom Committee statement today. My apologies. We'll make statements closer to events as they occur.
So we'll remove 13.1B. There's a seconder for that. Councillor Clark. All those in favor of that amendment? That amendment is carried. And I understand that we had another change to the agenda. City Councillor Jeff Birch from the City of St. Catharines regarding the Governance Committee could not make it at the last minute. I believe you received information from Councillor Birch today. Or are you going to treat that differently, Madam Clerk?
I do have a different resolution for that to direct the clerk to coordinate that with the presenter.
Okay, so that'll come at that time?
Yes, that's
All
correct.
right, so we'll look forward to that. Any other changes to the agenda at this time? There being none, I call the question on the amended agenda. All those in favor? None opposed. That motion is carried as amended. Thank you. Do members have any disclosure of pecuniary interest that they need to declare at this time? Along with the general nature thereof? Okay, there are none. Please note that in the minutes. And the next item is hearing of a presentation or a delegation. And the first, we have a presentation by members of Deloitte and Touche. We have Evan McDade and Corinne Kraus, who are representatives from our auditors. But they're sitting here, but I understand that the treasurer has some comments to make in advance of their presentation. So we look forward to that. And Ms. Lupo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I am pleased to have Evan McDade and Corinne Kraus here representing the firm of Deloitte & Touche, and shortly they will present the audit program to council. In advance of this presentation, I'd like to discuss the operating surplus to council as presented in the draft financial statements. But before I do this, I want to recognize the staff of the Town of Pelham for their work on this audit. What may not be known to council is that a lot of work is done outside of the corporate services area, and we rely on a lot of staff to provide supporting documentation, explanations, confirmations, etc. on events during the course of this audit. And on behalf of the corporate services, I would like to thank those staff for helping us out. And also I would like to acknowledge the time and effort that Shannon Cormos and the rest of the corporate services staff put into making this the most successful audit yet. Shannon especially, who worked tirelessly to keep the audit on track and facilitate all the requests of the audit. She doesn't like this stuff, so process. I wish to acknowledge her and thank her as well as the corporate services staff. And now on to the financial results.
You said yet. We haven't approved the audit yet, so we might have a few hiccups here around the table, but we certainly appreciate the efforts of Ms. Cormos. Thank you. Go ahead.
Council has received on their tables tonight information showing the final 2011 surplus. To summarize the in-year financial transactions for 2011 and previously detailed in report TR 1112, the projected 2011 surplus allocation recommendation, the following amounts were put to the reserves for future use. Principal loan repayment, $35,000, CIP reserve, $50,000, facilities reserve, $25,000, land acquisition reserve, $25,000, and the balance was to working funds reserved of $1,866. Originally, as part of the report, the TR 11/12 report, there was a small balance of $34.81 that was to go to working funds reserved. However, during the course of the audit, there were small accruals and items that needed to be adjusted, and that ended up with a small balance of $18.66 going to those working funds. In summary, the transfers reflect an in-year financial surplus for 2011 of $136,866, largely due to unanticipated increases in user fees and charges revenues. You will note, however, on page 13 of the draft financial statements that you received, that there is it's showing a deficit just over $6 million. To clarify this deficit for council, this is the consolidated deficit, which includes, amongst other things, capital projects. The deficit that you see there is the result of project expenses that were in progress but not finalized in 2011. There's no funding revenues were recognized in 2011 for those projects. These are referred to as CIPs, or construction in progress assets. For 2011, the major projects were Hay Street, Pelham Street, and financial statements, Fire Station number 2, and among other smaller capital projects that were in progress. So council will notice a significant decrease in 2012 financial statements because those major projects will receive their funding in year as they're finalized. This will be further explained in the presentation by Evan McDade, and I will now turn over to Evan to present the audit program to council. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I was here on April the 2nd to present our audit plan for the year, and in that plan I indicate that I'd be back at the conclusion of the audit to present our findings, and that is my purpose here tonight. With me is Corinne Kraus, who was the senior manager on the job, and she had more of the day-to-day interactions with the treasurer and deputy treasurer. I have a brief presentation tonight, which I will go through, but this is merely a subset of the complete a document that was included in your council package called the year-end communication. So it's a much lengthier document. What I'll be presenting tonight are just excerpts of that to facilitate the discussion that we wish to have. What I want to go through in the next few moments is to present our audit findings, talk about the audit risks that we presented and what we'd be looking at and our conclusions thereon. And in addition to that, there are 23 items in addition to the independent auditor's report that we issue that we'll also be reporting. And these are all, I characterize them as just being the qualitative results of the external audit. Going through the audit findings, I did indicate when I was here on April the 2nd that we would conduct our audit in terms and within a scope of materiality, and materiality being that the amount that the financial statements could be misstated and would cause users of the statements to make an inappropriate decision. I think at that time I indicated that the materiality we would use would be $650,000, which was based on 2% of your expenditures or your revenues, which are close to the same thing. When we went back and looked closer at that, we realized that we were using gross numbers, and some of those numbers are flow-through. Instead, we wanted to focus only on the ones that relate to the town of Pelham. As a result, we lowered our materiality to 2% of your net revenues, and the revised materiality that we used was $290,000. I also went through some iterations as to what our level of comfort or threshold would be, and if there were any, if you may recall, I used a number of 10% of that number and then even a further one of 5% if there were any errors that we needed to report to council. The 5% of the materiality is $14,500, so if there were any adjustments greater than that, we would be bringing those to your attention. You'll be pleased to know that there in fact are none that met even that smaller threshold, so there will be none to report. The audit results, we did complete our audit. There is only, as we'll see shortly, just one small outstanding item, and maybe I'll just leave that comment until we get to that part of the presentation. And we did conduct our audit in accordance with Canadian generally accepted audit standards, and we will be free to issue an audit opinion upon the completion of a few items which I will talk about. I was here on April the 2nd to present the plan. There were no changes to that plan, and if there were, we would be reporting those to you. So the status of our audit, it is, I'm going to say, substantially complete. There's really no more audit work that we need to do. There's just one item that will have an impact on your final financial statements, and that is when the Niagara Power or NPEI approves their financial statements, which I understand is going to be tonight, then that information will go into your financial statements, and then they'll all be final. But we cannot finalize until that happens tonight. Now, there's a couple of other items that are listed there. They say receipt of a signed management representation letter, legal letters to be received and legal update, and completion of our own quality control. And it is a minor file documentation, which is the receipt of those financial statements from NPEI. All of those sort of happen when council ultimately approves the financial statements. When they do, then we can receive a management representation letter and close down our file. So it is 99% complete, and there's really no more audit work to do to finalize that. Related party transactions, there were none that are not in the normal course of your operations, and if there were any, or any of them are all disclosed in the financial statements. The significant accounting policies that you use are the ones that are appropriate for municipalities in Ontario and in Canada, and the good news for the accounting folks is that there were no changes in the accounting policies this year. There's been some major projects that have been undertaken, particularly in 2009, when you had to report all of your tangible capital assets, and I say that was a major undertaking by all municipalities. Fortunately, there were none of those in 2011. We did review management's estimates and judgments, and although this was our first year of his appointment as external auditors, we did go back and compare the judgments and estimates that were made last year to what the actuals were, to give us a baseline for determining the extent and quality of judgments and estimates made by management this year. And we are satisfied both with the ones that have been made in prior years as well as the ones that have been done this year. There are no unadjusted differences, no errors, no disclosure deficiencies. Your audit statements are complete, and there's nothing that we're bringing forward asking to changed. So at the conclusion, there was no restrictions placed on our audit, and we will issue a clean audit opinion upon receipt of those other items that I had mentioned. I did indicate on April the 2nd, when I was here, that we would take that all the transactions and all the external financial reporting that the town does would be subject to our audit, but we would take a deeper dive into some particular areas. And the ones I highlighted at that time were accounts payable and accrued liabilities, and we checked to ensure that all of the expenses that related to December 31st, 2011 have been recorded. If there were revenues that related to 2012, that in fact they would be deferred, and those are kind of examples. So checking the cutoff to ensure that all of your transactions that do relate to 2011 were properly reported and supported, and indeed they were. The employee future benefits is a big estimate and calculation that's done by management, and we reviewed that, ensured that the calculation is accurate and the disclosures are complete. Contingencies, just by the nature of municipalities, there's sometimes always contingencies. And the one that we most often refer to is potential or pending litigation, and to determine what the impact of that could be on your December 2011 financial statements, and there are no outstanding matters that need to be reported in the numbers that you've already seen, or any numbers that would have an impact on the surplus that was just previously reported to you. We do test council and senior management expenses. As being a municipality in Ontario, there's the broader public sector procurement guidelines, and we, that's the arena that you're operating in, and we ensure that the council and senior management expenses are valid and properly approved, and we do test those, and there's nothing that we need to report back to a council tonight. I made comments about estimates, a couple of other areas that we did take a deeper look at. Payroll being your largest single expenditure, to ensure that it's complete and valid, and in fact it is, and procurement process, to ensure that your procurement process is in compliance with your policies and expectations of council. 3 other areas that we did look at was the reserves and reserve funds, to determine any monies going into and out of reserves was properly authorized by and reported to council. Revenue and deferred revenue, to ensure that the revenues are properly reported, and if there were any amounts that related to 2012, that in fact they were deferred, and indeed they were. And taxation revenue, similar to the one above it, again, to ensure that the numbers that you are seeing being reported are in fact all of the 2011 revenues. In addition to the numbers that we've just would be reporting on, and the numbers that your treasurer reported, there's a list of 23 items here that kind of summarize the qualitative results of the audit. And because they were included in your package, I won't go through them line by line, but some of the ones I will highlight. That our audit strategy and scope was as presented on it in my presentation on April the 2nd. We did review management's judgments and accounting estimates and found them to be satisfactory. There were no financial statement adjustments required, and no additional disclosure items that are not already in the draft financial statements that you've seen. There were no accounting policies or audit matters or practices that management didn't like the position that we were taking, and perhaps went out and tried to seek a second opinion on those. There were none. That was something we call opinion shopping, is something that's frowned upon, often because the opinion that you're seeking, the person giving that doesn't have the same level of information that we're working from. Again, that would be frowned upon. Disagreements with management, there were none, but one thing, there were none, but just as a further explanation, if there were some, we would be reporting those to you, the nature of them in particular. And we'd give you a little bit more background as to what the nature of that disagreement might have been and what the resolution was. The reason we do that is for full accountability and transparency, to let you know what might have taken place behind the scenes, and whether we as external auditors or management as, in fact, management, perhaps pushed us into a position, or we pushed them into a position that was uncomfortable, we would disclose that to you. But there was none, and I just wanted to be clear that in fact there was, we would do that. Again, the other items that are listed here, significant difficulties, if any, encountered during the audit, there were none. No illegal or possible illegal acts that were detected as a result of our audit. And you can see the other items that are there. But the sum and substance of these items here is there anything else, as external auditors, we believe that council should be aware of that they wouldn't otherwise be aware of, either from our presentation, from our communication, or information related to the financial statements that was presented by your treasurer. Then the bottom line is that there is none. It was a smooth audit, a clean audit, and at the conclusion of this, we'll be issuing a clean audit opinion, which is what you must achieve in order to be in compliance with the Municipal Act. So that is the report of the external auditors, and the more complete document is included in your council package. At this time, I'd entertain any questions that council may have for us.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. McDade. Wonder if members of council have any questions? Councillor Powell. Go ahead.
I'm not used to this.
Oh, just speak and I'll pick it up.
Or will it?
Referring to the microphone.
Thank you,
Go ahead,
Mr.
Councillor.
McDade. I'm very pleased with the results and the work that was done by the staff and that. There's just one, perhaps, either yourself, Mr. CEO, or the Treasurer, you could answer. I read where you talked to our town's external law firms with respect to contingencies in outstanding claims. Do you normally, or maybe it's not something, in all fairness, do you quantify what could potentially be that amount? I mean, I know you don't need to do it, but I mean, we do have outstanding, and maybe, Madam Treasurer, you could explain how that's accounted for. Because if we do settle, we have to pay from someplace. I'm being overgeneral, but.
The audit firm sends a representation letter to the legal firm that is representing the town, and they are to issue an opinion on whether they think what the situation may be for the claim. Most of the time, they're not able to quantify anything because they don't know which way it's going to go, but they do their best to give some sort of opinion on the bottom line accountability for the town.
Thank you, Ms. Booth.
Satisfied. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Other questions? Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. I want to compliment you on the work that you've done and our staff has done. It's very interesting to read through this, but my one comment is, if in order to have full transparency to our public, a document such as this is rather challenging to read for the average person in the public sphere, who might not have as much familiarity with financial statements as accountants do or as businessmen do. I just wondered if there's ever an extra step that could be undertaken whereby this statement could be put in a format that is much simpler, much clearer, that could be released to the public so that they could have a snapshot view of the financial situation of the town.
Mr. McDade, is that something you do, or is that something that our staff could do?
Yeah, and just to be clear, there's two documents that we have. One is our year-end communication, and then the second one was the financial statements. Are you talking about both documents?
Talking
or
about
the financial
the financial
statements?
The financial statement specifically.
Yeah. Okay, sure.
Financial statements are done according to the audit standards and the requirements under that umbrella. I think if we're looking to do more, it would be a staff objective to do that. Otherwise, it would be part of a fee process with an audit firm to do that, to break it down even further. The consolidation obviously can be broke down by all the departments that are in that consolidated statement. It just becomes voluminous in paperwork as well, and reading through all of that. But that's why I like to do the reports on the surplus in advance, and this report on the surplus, so the general public can know where the town's operating position stands. And the PSAP stuff is something that a lot of people, regardless of how it's presented, don't really understand the concept of it as well. So that's, I mean, it's something that could be thought of in the future. I'm waiting for Shannon to show me that look of fear on her face, but it's something for consideration.
Yeah, I just thought if we could take the main salient points that an average person out there could take, a 2-page statement and look at it and say, okay, this is how much came in, this is what the town kept, this is how we spent our money, this is what we have at the end of the year.
Right, and
And-
that would come at the quarterly report that I do, the ending year-end balance. It could be presented in that format. I mean, that's already done. We would just have to adjust for that minor adjustment in the working funds. And that's something that we could put on the website as a
Right.
operating surplus for the year,
Great.
easily.
Okay, good idea. Thank you. Others, questions? No questions or comments? Okay, thank you very much. I have a small question, but I'll ask the treasurer about it offline, so I appreciate that. But thank you very much for your presentation this evening, and certainly we appreciate the work of your firm and working together with town staff on that matter. So thank you very much. I do have a motion, and that has been moved by Councillor Durley, seconded by Councillor Ribbiak. The council receive and approve the 2011 financial statements, excluding the town's equity investment in Niagara Peninsula Energy Incorporated, NPEI, and the auditor's report dated May 22nd, 2012, prepared by the firm of Deloitte & Touche LLP, and that the equity investment in NPEI be finalized, included in the final draft of the 2011 audited financial statements prior to the June 4th council meeting for final approval of council. Discussion on the motion. Well, hopefully we'll have it by that time. You said it was approved at MPI today, so we look forward to receiving that. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. Thank you again for your presentation and for your firm's work. And again to Ms. Pupo and Ms. Kormos for your work on this audit and all of the staff in corporate services. Thank you very much. Our next item of business, as I mentioned at the outset of the agenda, Councillor Birch had indicated that he could not make the meeting this evening. However, the clerk has a motion here, moved by Councillor Papp, seconded by Councillor Clark, that the information submitted regarding item 6.2A, being a delegation by the City of St. Catharines, Councillor Jeff Birch, regarding the City of St. Catharines Governance Committee, be referred to a future meeting, and that the delegation rescheduled at the request of the presenter, and that the clerk be directed to coordinate the future presentation. Any discussion on that matter? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? None opposed. That motion is carried, and we look forward to that presentation and that discussion in the future. The next item of business has been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Papp, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on Monday, May 7th, 2012, be adopted as printed, circulated, and read. Are there any errors or omissions in those minutes? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. Thank you. The next item is consent agenda items to be considered in block. And I wonder if there are any agenda items, consent agenda items, that members of council would like to lift for separate consideration. There aren't any? Okay. Maybe I'll get her to comment on it. Thank you, Madam Clerk. It has been moved by Councillor Clark, seconded by Councillor Papp, that the following consent agenda items be received and approved. 10.1, minutes of general committee meeting, May 7th, 2012, and recommendation sheet. Consent agenda 1 to 4, corporate services 1 and number 2 as amended, and number 3, community infrastructure services 1 and 2, planning 1, and committee of the whole 1. 10.2, information correspondence items received to May 16th, 2012, an item from the Town of Niagara-on-the-Lake. 10.3, the Town of Pelham Library Board minutes from 2 meetings, February 8th and March 14th, 2012. And also committee minutes for information of council. 5 items. Pelham Active Transportation Committee of April 17th, the Queen's 60th Diamond Jubilee Committee, they had a meeting on April 19th, and Pelham Summerfest Committee 3 minutes, April 25th, May 2nd, and May 9th. And Madam Clerk, could you just please speak to the as amended under Corporate Services 2, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that has to do with the Treasurer's report with regard to handheld devices and IT. There were some amendments directed at the General Committee meeting, which the Treasurer has made and forwarded to all members of Council, so we just wanted to include the amended version in the motion for this evening.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And now discussion on the items on the consent agenda. Is there any? There being none, I call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. The next item is presentation consideration of reports. Unfortunately, Councillor King indicated that she was ill and couldn't join us this evening. And Councillor Ribbiak has indicated that he won't be having his two reports, but we look forward to his future reports. And that leaves me with a couple of reports. Bear with me for a second as I turn the page here. Thank you. The first report is regarding the Mayor's Walk on May 17th, 2012. This was the 8th annual Pelham Mayor's Walk, held here at, starting at the market here at 6 p.m. on May 17th. Now, it was interesting. Somebody indicated to me they thought that the walk was a fundraising walk. Well, that's for a worthy cause. That's not the case. The Mayor's Walk is a way to encourage residents in Pelham to use our trails and trail system and to become more active. And as a result, that's why the Pelham Active Transportation Committee members were there, and I certainly appreciate their involvement in the walk. They were there with a special board there and giving out various items, and they had draws and those kind of things to increase enthusiasm in being active in our community. They were also soliciting feedback from residents about what are the types of things that improvements that we can make in our town to make our community a more active place, whether it's sidewalks or trails, etc. So we look forward to that report when it comes with their 2012 suggestions for the 2013 budget. Back to the walk. We had more than 35 participants who took part in it, and I certainly also appreciate staff for organizing it. Special thanks go to representatives from the Nature Conservancy of Canada. They included biologist Dr. McFarlane and Representative Ms. Crosswaite, who led us on the portion of the walk that was on the Lathrop Trail. Council will recall that we walked in this area last year, and this is Nature Conservancy of Canada property. It was given and bequeathed to the Conservancy of Canada from the Lathrop family several years ago. And the walk showed us the changes that occurred and the improvements that occurred within the last year. In some cases, they removed invasive plants, which included things like periwinkle. In other cases, they showed the work that they did improving a meadow and the plantings that the Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority had done in a meadow to try to return that meadow to a natural state. And also just seeing the seasonal differences. So last year, full blooms all across the forest floor of trilliums, and this year, because of the warm spring that we've had, the trilliums were at the end of their bloom. The walk also points out how easy it is to get into the woods and take a little bit of a break. It's just a 2-minute walk up the hill here, crossing up the street at Pelham Street and Regional Road 20. Just really a few steps from Font Hills downtown, and there's other trails like that through our community. I want to express appreciation again to B. Clark and the members of the Pelham Active Transportation Committee and staff in the Community Services Department and all those that participated in the walk. Thank you very much, and we look forward to next year. And I guess the final word is please get out and be active in our community. We have some fabulous trails. My next report, members of council, is regarding Dr. Kevin Smith's report on, it's an interim report to the Niagara community regarding restructuring of the Niagara health system. Council will recall that Dr. Kevin Smith, the provincially appointed supervisor of the NHS, presented an interim report regarding restructuring on May 2nd. Dr. Smith's 23 recommendations ranged from undertaking a national search to recruit a new CAO and a new chief of staff, to establishing a patient advisory committee to ensure patient-centered care, to reestablishing a board of directors, which is essentially the role that he's doing. He's representing the board with a skills-based board. You may have read in the media that several of his recommendations also dealt with facilities. He recommended that in addition to the St. Catharines Hospital site currently under construction, that the Niagara Health System should construct a new general acute care hospital as well as a freestanding urgent care center in South Niagara and close the existing facilities in Port Colborne, Fort Erie, Niagara Falls, Welland, and in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Dr. Smith estimated that this preferred option would cost $879 million in capital, but it would save $9.5 million in annual operating expenses, and that's on a budget of about $410 million, an operating budget of $410 million. He also presented two other options that he looked at: a revitalized status quo, so looking at the existing sites in essence, and 3 acute care hospitals with ER sites, GNGH, St. Catharines and Welland, 3 complex care sites, Niagara-on-the-Lake, Fort Erie, and Port Colborne, and 2 urgent care centers in Fort Erie and Port Colborne, and that would cost, he estimated, $883 million in capital and save only $2 million in more efficient operations. And then a hybrid option, which was 2 acute care and ER sites, so the Greater Niagara General, the Greater Niagara General Hospital in Niagara Falls and St. Catharines, 1 ambulatory and urgent care center, which would be in Welland, and 2 complex care sites in Port Colborne and Fort Erie, and that would cost $1.16 billion in upgrades and save $2.8 million in operations. Dr. Smith indicated that the consolidation of this option would lead to critical mass of clinical activity. It would simplify physician and staff coverage and better attract healthcare learners. He also recommended that the mayors of the southern tier, with input from the regional chair, should recommend to him the locations for the new hospital and the standalone urgent care center in the south. He suggested that we look at population density and access as our primary considerations in that recommendation. We have met as a body, the 6 mayors, 2 times. The first was an initial meeting a couple of weeks ago looking at what Dr. Smith recommended, what are the types of information that's required, and we did so in the regional chair's office, and he was able to get some information for us so that we could work on making a decision. We then met again last Friday. We reviewed some of that data and confirmed what we thought was needed to help make a determination, to help Dr. Smith with his determination. So looking at things like population density, as he suggested, but also EMS and the emergency management system, ambulances, etc. So what is the drive times and distances that they require in addition to the general population? We're looking at things like urban boundaries and serviced areas where there's existing pipes and existing access for roads. So for instance, we wouldn't want to necessarily recommend it in a location, if one can help it, where there isn't already some infrastructure in place. In the case of the St. Catharines Hospital and the new cancer center in the north, regional council is going through an environmental assessment right now, and regional staff are undertaking that. It's estimated that a new interchange is required, and that would probably be in the tune of about $15 million to build that. And plus, we've also already incurred costs for infrastructure like pipes, sewers, and water to go out to that new site. So, is there a siting or area that one can suggest that would already has that infrastructure in place and reduce those costs? And transportation, so I talked about that. We did also speak to Dr. Smith. He indicated that he is hopeful that we can meet this June 14th deadline. He wants to file his report, and he wants to hear from us by June 14th. He also indicated that it will be a full hospital according to his recommendation. So It would include ICU and step-down beds and those types of things in this hospital, complete hospital. When asked if the Minister of Health had confirmed, as many people had asked, whether the funding might be there, he indicated that she didn't say don't go ahead with that recommendation, but she didn't confirm it either. So it's kind of in a no man's limbo area. So the reason I raise it tonight certainly is to highlight it to the community, to let members of residents of Pelham know that I'm interested in feedback, so that I can serve this duty that's been given to me. But also I want to hear from my colleagues around this table about what are the types of determinations that you think should be part of our process, the criteria, etc. I'm not proposing that we have a map, pull out a map in front of us and point to a few locations or things like that. But instead, I think, certainly look to yourselves and the community on what are those criteria. Did we miss something? Is something much more important than something else? What are the types of things that we should be thinking about as we move forward with this task that we've been charged with? So I'd be very pleased to answer any questions that members of council have, and also look forward to your feedback. Councillor Papp.
Well, I will give you feedback, but not this evening. I need time to digest the report, because there are several areas in which, besides the construction of a new hospital and all these other considerations, there are several other criteria and things that need to be taken into light, which I'm sure you understand that already. So I will be submitting my comments to you, and
Perfect.
based
Thank
on
you.
what since I have been involved to some extent with the healthcare and long-term care system and familiar with this, it is important for the public to know that this is setting the stage for hopefully very forceful, fruitful discussions, particularly in light of the fact that there are close to over 900 acute care beds located in the peninsula. The St. Catherine's Hospital will accommodate about 350, and then there's the cancer treatment. So all these configurations, I would suggest to you, Mr. Mayor, as well, the demographics, the acuities that we know of certain disease processes that are taking place. I mean, it's not something we should pound our chest, but, you know, we have higher than usual incidence of heart disease. We have higher than usual incidence of cancer. We have other areas. The bottom line is, how will this be shaped and formed? So rather than elaborate on that, I would, if you're agreeable, that I realize June 15th. The one question I do have for you, once he receives all this, the report that goes to the Minister of Health and Long-Term Care, Ms. Matthews, is the intent to start that dialogue, or like even if you came up, let's just say you came up with a site and we all agree, is the idea is then to start the negotiations, or just is it a matter of, you know, him, and maybe you can help us with this, or help myself, because I wasn't around for that period.
Yeah, sorry. Start negotiations for siting, you mean, or start
The
negotiations with the
take
actual?
the concept of a new
Yeah.
hospital, a new healthcare
Okay.
facility, and actually move it forward into the southern tier.
I think my understanding of what Dr. Smith's recommending is he's in the same boat. He's asking for feedback as I am on this
Right.
particular task, but he's looking for feedback on the entire interim report here that he has, the 51 pages.
The whole report.
And in fact, it was on the radio today, and he has a blog, online journal that he's updated and looking for that feedback. So I think what he's stated is that he's looking for the feedback of the community, including the mayors on the siting portion, and he'll take a couple of weeks to formalize the report. If there's some changes that are required in his interim report, as I understand it, he'll make those changes, recommendations, etc. And he wants to file it, as I think he stated in the report, he wants to file it by the end of June. So he's given himself a couple of weeks to fine tune it based on that feedback date. And then I think as I understand it, through discussions with him and with others, he's hoping to hear back from the minister in a few months, sort of thing. So maybe by the beginning or middle of September, so that we can then move ahead. So in terms of negotiations of citing, that's way down the road. I think there does need to be a commitment that from the minister that that's the way that the province wants to proceed, to follow up with the recommendations. So I think it's similar in many respects, and I'm not trying to make a long answer, but it's similar to the Drummond report, where the government gave Mr. Drummond an opportunity to put together a report. They may take parts of it, they may take all of it, but they also only take parts of it and move ahead with it. So it's still, I think, up in the air, Councillor, and but I think by the same token, it is very important to get that feedback in, and so that those decision makers can take it, understand it all, and put it into the final report that they'll be putting forward, and then the minister can make the determination. So I hope that helps, Councillor.
Yeah, and I think what the ultimate would be to see the ministers accept and say, the feedback clearly indicates that we need to start a process to rebuild our healthcare system down south.
Yeah.
And there's several components to that. I mean, I don't want to elaborate, but I will offer you some insight that we've had, and including some of my other colleagues, because that's critical to it. I mean, and there's also questions of governance. There's all kinds of issues in there that raises all kinds of scenarios of, how do we want to see this whole system managed? But more importantly, what are the physical entities and the staffing and the type of services that we really want for now and the future? The fact remains that, and it's not a secret for some of us who were born in certain hospitals, some of these hospitals are 50, 60 years old already, and rebuilding them, reconstructing them, he's right. You have to look at something. So there's a lot of positives. What I think is, I'm looking at is that once this is tabled, the minister will say, geez, it looks like you guys are committed. You really want to move forward with some form of a plan that includes these physical structures. So you're right. I'll share those with you. And I was fascinated by all the different areas that he touched upon. Thank you.
It's a very, very comprehensive
Yes,
report
it
on
is.
his part, but
Yep.
certainly look forward to that feedback. Thank you very much, Councillor. Other councillors? Councillor Durley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report is entitled Interim Report to the Niagara Community. Where is it available for the general public to actually access it, or is it not? And I feel it's very important that the message gets out to say, okay, folks, not only are your elected officials going to be looking at this, but you have the right to input, and let's get your ideas. So where could they access this report? And you did indicate in your article that you're willing to act as an intermediary to receive some of these comments at Mayor Dave at pelham.ca, and also there is a direct contact with Dr. Smith at nhssupervisor@gmail.com. So if we can get these out, definitely anybody interested can give their comments there. But it's important, I think, that they can access this. Where can they access this?
Certainly, it is online. I don't know that it's available not online. And perhaps what we should probably do here is we should make a copy available here at Town Hall for people at the desk as they come in. But it's online at www.niagarahealth.on.ca and then /supervisor. So I think what I've done before is I've just typed in Niagara Health System, get to their website, and then you just go on the end and go /supervisor, and it gets right to the report. It's there, you click on it, and it's in a PDF. But I think if we can also, you make a good point, Councillor, we can also put a copy just here at Town Hall available for folks that may not have access to the internet. They can read it here.
Fantastic.
Go ahead,
if I may as well. Dr. Smith indicates that all input should be received by him no later than June 15th. So an immediate action, I think, is necessary. That gives him time to put it all together. But if we can look, I had a real good look at this weekend. As with Councillor Papp, there are some concerns that I have, and there are some input that I'm going to be giving. Just a matter of, digesting it all, because it's a 51-page document, and there's a lot of good stuff in there. So definitely something will be coming, but we encourage the public to have a look at this, because it's your hospital, and it's our hospital. So we have to let's do it right the first time, so we don't have to do it over.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I look forward to that, and thank you for the comments about public getting involved in the process. Any other comments or questions from councillors at this time? Councillor Rubio.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and let me commend you on the article that you wrote asking for input, and indeed today's initiative in publicizing this. I'm assuming, and maybe that's the wrong thing to do, but I'm assuming that Dr. Smith has initiated other ways of getting input from institutions, agencies, groups who would be interested from around the area. I'm thinking, for example, of the doctors who work here in Pelham and some of the seniors' homes, that sort of thing. Or is the only avenue through which their input is going to be directed to Dr. Smith through you?
Oh.
I just want to know how broad is the initiative that Dr. Smith is taking with regard to gaining input, and how can people be assured that they have the right place to put their comments?
Well, I appreciate the question. First, I'm going to read a little bit from his report in which he states in the executive summary: since my appointment as supervisor of the NHS at the end of August 2011, I have listened to thousands of people, both from the Niagara community and from staff and physicians of the NHS. In addition, I have consulted with many experts in the field of multi-site healthcare delivery and examined data ranging from population density, projected staff turnover rates, financial forecasts, and patient care information. So he's my understanding, and from speaking with him, is he's done a lot of work in order to get these recommendations, and he's been very open, and I commend him for being very open on that. He is asking for feedback directly on the plan, and that can be at, as Councillor Durley indicated, at that website and at that email, nhssupervisor@gmail.com. The feedback that I'm looking for, and as Councillor Papp indicated, that report is very broad, and it touches on many elements of healthcare, but the major piece that the media at least have picked up on, and I think rightly so, because people are concerned about healthcare in one's community or close to one's community, is the siting. That's the feedback that I'm looking for.
Okay.
What are the criteria needed? What are the siting things that we should be considering, so that after the fact, folks can say, you know what, that's the right spot, or that's in the general area that I think it should be, as opposed to many people saying, as Dr. Smith writes in the report, the St. Catherine's Hospital isn't in the right spot. That's what many people have said, for good or ill. So I think he's hoping for a positive outcome on this, to say, let's try to get together on this in advance. And he's tasked the mayors of the southern tier, which include myself as mayor of Pelham, but also the mayors of Wainfleet, Port Colborne, Welland, Niagara Falls, and Fort Erie, to come up with that siting location. We're still in that process, gathering information, especially using GIS, which is, what's that stand for? Global
Geographical Information System.
Geographical Information System, computer-generated systems to come up with maps, and they can do various things with it. Our staff use it here at Town Hall, but the region uses it. So we're still going through that process. So the reason to raise it today is to ask colleagues around the table and highlight it in the community about the siting options. But if there's anything else affecting healthcare, I'm not a doctor, so please send it to Dr. Smith in the ways that we've outlined. I hope that helps clarify it, and I certainly appreciate the question to help clarify it. Okay, thank you very much. Others? Councillor Kersey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's certainly a comprehensive report. The one curiosity I have, and he says early on that he consulted with thousands of people and healthcare practitioners, et cetera, et cetera. And yet when we come to the siting of the new proposed hospital, he hasn't involved any healthcare practitioners, representatives from EMS. He's turned it into the political sphere. And I don't know whether his intuition told him it's better to deal with the political sphere first and then the healthcare sphere, but it would seem to me that it might be incumbent upon the mayor's committee to perhaps invite healthcare practitioners, representatives from the various hospitals, to appear before you and try and get some direct feedback from them and from EMS with respect to siting and the types of, that type of feedback, so that when you make your recommendation from the political sphere, you're not going to get pushback from the healthcare sphere. I think,
It's a good point.
you know, so that's a suggestion. I noticed it's lacking in his recommendation on the composition of the committee, so I put that out to you for consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. We have discussed that, and I neglected to mention a body that was involved. So we certainly had John Kinane, who's the director of EMS, around the table at our last meeting. We also had the medical officer of health, who's very well versed in healthcare. But we could get other representatives from the doctors, et cetera. We did discuss it. We didn't come to a conclusion on that, but we did have the medical officer of health around the table, and she's going to be assisting us with some of the levels of ER, et cetera. But I do appreciate the recommendation, especially with maybe the chief of staff or representatives from the physician groups about that, to get that feedback. So I'll raise that at our next meeting. I think we're meeting on Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Anything else from any other members of council? Councillor Pat, for a second time.
Second time, and I just pick it up with Councillor Kersey. So are you, and maybe it's unfair, are you engaging the local municipal planners?
I think we're going through the regional planners as opposed to
So
the
you are
local
using
planners.
staff in
Yes.
the whole context of,
Yeah.
okay, well.
It was important.
Maybe I misunderstood it, but yeah, because it's important that
It was
they be-
important to me, especially probably because of our experience here in Pelham being green belted, as it were. It's important to me that the consideration be given to urban boundaries and especially the serviced areas within those urban boundaries. So there may be areas within the urban boundaries but not yet serviced. So what's the cost of those kind of things that we would all have to share on a regional side? So we haven't specifically approached the local planners yet. It may come when siting is determined within a specific municipality. One of the things that we have said as mayors is that we will, normally we think within our boundaries, whether it's everything we do, but we're trying to say let's erase those boundaries and think about this as to what is best for the residents that we represent, regardless of the boundary. So it may get to that, Councillor, in terms of local planning, and we might need some feedback from local planners. We're now looking at it not sort of close to the ground, but 10, 20,000 feet to try to see where some siting can occur if that option, that recommended option, were to move forward. Okay. Thank you.
I just, Mr. Mayor, I give you guys a lot of credit, but I guess what I'm hearing is that the preferred option is to build a brand-new acute care facility in South Niagara. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's what Dr. Smith is
And
recommending.
he's suggesting that he work with you. Okay, so any other hybrid options or those that he suggested are not on the table? Not at this point?
Not for the job at hand. However, we can.
Oh, I'm just.
We have discussed all possible scenarios around the table. I'll just say
Good.
that.
It's very, very
We'll
complicated.
continue to discuss
It's
that.
very complicated.
It is.
And as many people as you can get to try and put together the rationalization, as you've heard me say on some occasions, of why you need things, the functionality of it and what it, but I was just curious, because I read when I got back that the focus is on this new acute care facility, which brings into play all kinds of different, but it'll be good to see how that all pans out.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor.
Okay, thank you
Thank
for
you.
the opportunity.
Others? Councillor Durley.
Just one thing and an observation. I think Pelham is in a unique situation in that many of our folks go St. Catharines Way to get the service, and many of our folks go to the southern tier. So we have perhaps a genuine interest in both the north and the south. Some people choose to read the St. Catharines Standards, others the Tribune. Of course, everybody reads the Voice of Pelham, so there is a
See what happens when you show up?
However, I think you know, for ourselves, we have that option, and I think people do have a preference as to which hospital to go to. So, you know, therein lies some uniqueness in ourselves and how we look for our services. So, you know, I think that's probably a positive to us as well.
And Councillor, I'll certainly add that to the commentary and the discussion that we have. There may be portions of well, I think it's quite clear, certainly portions of Pelham that will go to the north, portions of other parts of communities, maybe parts of Niagara Falls that will want to go to that St. Catharines facility as opposed to a southern facility, or certainly parts of Thorold in the Fort Robinson, Allenburg area. Which way would they go? Well, so it's a good question to ask as part of the process, so I appreciate you raising it. Thank you very much. So you provided some great feedback, and some will be coming in email. I wonder if, or other written form, you know, carrier pigeon if you want as well. But I wonder if there's any other further comments at this point in time. Hopefully there aren't. So I appreciate your latitude, members of council as well. I wanted to have the discussion with you. The clerk and I spoke about where one would have that discussion, and I thought this worked out very well. So I appreciate the feedback that you've provided to me. And once again, I look forward to yourselves, but also other residents from Pelham getting back to me. If there's, please read the report, and my column is there, and I appreciate the papers putting that in. If there's some recommendations that members of the community will provide to me, I certainly would appreciate it. So thank you. So I'll move on, shall we, with the rest of our agenda. We have one staff report requiring action. So I saw that. Thank you.
If you want to.
Okay. Larger print on the next page. Okay. It has been moved by Councillor Kersey, seconded by Councillor Papp, that report CIS 1612, Pelham Summerfest, July 19th to 22nd, 2012. Special occasion permit, agreements for special occasion permits, patio extension, outdoor liquor sales, variance to noise bylaw, and road closures be received, and that the recommendation contained therein be approved as follows. That for reasons outlined in report CIS 1612, council designate Pelham Summerfest as a festival of municipal significance to be held as a 4-day event from Thursday, July 19th to Sunday, July 22nd, 2012. That the clerk be authorized to make application for a special occasion permit for Pelham Summerfest on Thursday, July 19th, Friday, July 20th, and Saturday, July 21st. That the mayor and clerk be authorized to enter into agreement with 3 licensed establishments within the licensed area to which the special occasion permit applies. Those establishments being Massimo's Pizzeria, Zest Restaurant, and Cafe on Main. That the town of Pelham offer no objection to the request from Massimo's Pizzeria, Zest Restaurant, and Cafe on Main for their respective applications for a patio extension for the Pelham Summerfest, subject to the following condition. That the selling and serving of alcohol to the approved outdoor area shall occur only between the hours of 11 a.m. and midnight on Saturday, July 21st, 2012, and the outdoor area shall be cleared of patrons by 1 a.m. on Sunday, July 22nd, 2012. That council authorize a variance to the town of Pelham bylaw number 3130, 2010, being a bylaw to regulate and control noise for the purpose of facilitating the Pelham Summerfest musical venues being conducted as part of the event from 11 a.m. on Saturday, July 21st until 1 a.m. on Sunday, July 22nd. And further, that council authorize the following road closures. Pelham Town Square entrance off Pelham Street from 7 a.m. Friday, July 20th to 9 a.m. Monday, July 23rd, 2012, and Pelham Street from Highway 20 to College Street from 4 p.m. Friday, July 20th to 1 a.m. Sunday, July 22nd, 2012. Discussion. I should say at outset, I certainly appreciate the work of staff, Councillor Kersey as a representative on the Pelham Summerfest Committee and chair of the committee. This is a tremendous event that's shaping up in our community, a 4-day festival, and certainly please take our thanks to the committee and to staff for this, and this is one of the details, or a few of the details that the committee is dealing with to make sure that this event is a success. So thank you very much, Councillor Kersey. Do councillors have any questions or comments about it? Councillor Kersey, go ahead.
I just noticed another minor error here, or change that we need. We need variance from 10 a.m. on Saturday, because in fact we do have, for example, Fawn Hill Music will be on the main stage at 10 o'clock in the morning.
You're referring to the noise bylaw?
Yes, that's right. She's requested from 11, or he's requested from 11 a.m. Should read 10 a.m.
Says 10 in the report? So can we just amend the recommendation here? We don't need to go to the formal. So it should be 10 a.m. It says 10 a.m. in the report. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you for.
In the body of the report.
Says 10 a.m. in the body of the report. So we'll make that change here if that's under the consent of council. 10 a.m. Thank you. Anything further, Councillor? Here. Anything further? And that is 4 p.m., not a.m.
Correct.
On that Friday. So. Okay, I'm going to call the question. Sorry, Councillor, I didn't see you. Didn't see you. I saw you, but I didn't see you jumping up and down. Go ahead.
I hadn't realized we'd completed the time for discussion, Mr. Mayor. I apologize for not having.
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, Mr. Mayor, I want to commend the entire committee on all the work that they are doing. Summerfest looks like it's shaping up to be a marvelous event. And in particular, I want to commend them on recognizing that certain aspects of a festival require longer hours, a greater ability to participate with one another in a number of different ways that laws generally prohibit one from doing. My only concern is that the road closures and, to some extent, I guess, the indication of a need for relief from the noise bylaw will affect, obviously, people in residences around the entire area. There's obviously a number of single-family dwellings, a number of multi-residential dwellings. I'm just wondering whether any attempt has been made to determine whether those road closures and the lifting of prohibitions within the noise bylaw are going to create any issues with anyone in particular, or is there a general understanding at this point that there is no objection to any of this happening?
We can answer that. Can you answer that, Mr. Lawrence?
I can to some extent. If you look at the attachment 2 to the report that highlights what sections of road are going to be closed. This was done last year. There's some detouring that's required on Pelham Street that's south of College, down College or down Emmett, down Port Robinson, accessing Rice Road or Station Street to move to the east, and there'll be other signage that can be put in place on Pancake Lane to facilitate traffic moves to the west. That's on the southerly limit. The only street that is effectively limited is Churchill, but if there is a need for emergency vehicles, there are people that are manning those barricades at different times during the day, all times during the day. And if emergency vehicles need to get through, they will be. No one is blocked off from actually accessing or losing access to their property. With respect to the noise, it's the council's bylaw, and the council has the authority to vary from the bylaw. I don't recall any complaints being received last year, although I have not recently considered the report. And they probably would have been quickly dismissed because council did grant a variance to the bylaw last year for the noise as well. I know that I reside between College and Emmett on Pelham Street, and the noise was not significant, I would say.
And we can't, if I may, Mr. Mayor, we can't recall any complaints that did arise from last year's Summerfest? I can't.
There were none.
I can't recall it.
Councillor Kersey, can you assist?
We received no complaints. In fact, everything was 100% positive feedback all the way. With respect to access to the businesses, considering we're closing this year on Friday, we've made arrangements. All the businesses on the east side will have parking off of Town Square. Of course, Town Square will remain open during that entire period. And for those businesses that are on the west side of Pelham Street, we've made arrangements between two property owners to provide an access ramp off of Highway 20 into a parking lot, which will afford access to all of the businesses during that close down period on Friday, and for that matter on Saturday. So while your concerns are well taken, given the feedback that we've had based on last year and the steps that we've taken to assure accessibility to all of the neighbors to Summerfest, I think we don't have any concerns here.
Okay, thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can recall that Summerfest was marvelous. It was a great experience. There were no complaints. And in putting this together, I guess we're relying on the experience that we had last year and counting on that as a good guide for this year. I think it's a good idea. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Others? Okay, thank you. We look forward to a wonderful Summerfest. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Again, we appreciate the work of the committee that's putting it together. You've dealt with everything in your hands except for weather, right? So we look forward to that as well. The next is report from Regional Councillor Brian Beatty. Thank you for joining us, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council and staff. This was a strange report to write in the sense that I was at a two-day meeting in Tober Memorial with the Niagara Escarpment Commission, and so I only attended the public health meeting, which was the shortest on record. So it's coming from the paperwork, and I'll rely on the mayor to fill in things that he may have observed or heard directly. Corporate Services Committee, we approved recommendations for the public engagement strategy for the 2013 budget. We've gone great lengths in the last couple of years in trying to use social media as well as providing opportunity very clearly publicized. So we're looking forward to increasing that engagement with our public at large. And I gather that the meeting was overwhelmed with a number of presentations with respect to the Niagara Regional Police Revolver Club on Cataract Road, and directed staff to dispose of the subject property by tender. And as a result, all the rest of that particular committee meeting is being put forward to this Thursday's council meeting. And from the number of emails that I have received, it sounds like it's a very contentious issue. Integrated Community Planning Committee, we received a presentation from the Welland River Floodplain Association respecting concerns with poorly drained agricultural lands in southeast Niagara, and received a presentation on the Niagara Regional Policy Planning respecting a customer service review need. Received for information a presentation on the Niagara Economic Development Growth Model, and a presentation respecting a review of the Greater Niagara Circle Route, the Regional Niagara Bicycle Committee, and other transportation-related committees, and deferred action on that. I'm pleased with that because it was not there. I've had a number of years experience with the RMBC, and currently am the Conservation Authority representative on the Circle Route. So we'll be looking forward to having active debate on that at the next meeting of the ICP. Held a statutory public meeting and approved recommendation report to amend Regional Policy Plan RPPA 5/2011 to allow a proposed new sanitary sewer and to allow connection to Old Town Urban Area sewer service through the installation of a forest main in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Received a delegation with respect to official plan amendment number 94, and I'm going to need help here, Mr. Mayor, because the gray pages had this as a mixed message. It looked like the proposed growth plan compliance policies for City of Niagara Falls. It says, and defer discussion of the item pending further discussions between regional staff and city staff, but then approved, it appears, other sections of official plan amendment number 94, but excluded the properties identified as the Northwest Landowners Group. And that's the Club Italia area, and there's a church in that area, I believe, as well. And it's
You got it right. We approved everything save and except for that particular issue identified by that Northwest Landowners Group.
Yeah, and that has been, it's not my third term
deferred.
of council, it's been a matter of discussion for all three terms of council that they want to have themselves included in the urban area. They do have partial servicing, but it's an ongoing issue of push me, pull me, especially with our overall growth plan estimates for the potential growth already in Niagara Falls. So it's an ongoing story that's been around for, in my case, 8 years. And finally, authorized implementation of the finalization of the economic development model. For Public Health and Social Services, the committee that I did attend approved the 2011 Community Services, reviewed financial schedules, and added a .6 full-time equivalent clerk position for the Healthy Smiles Ontario program. That's basically database gathering. We have our dental bus now on the road. We're doing a lot of work with youth for early at-risk issues on dental, and this is basically to document for the Government of Ontario the degree of success we're having with the Healthy Smiles Ontario program. For Public Works Committee, there was an authorization to establish a memorandum of understanding between the region and the province to amend the completed Bound Road structure replacement EA with an EA for a wider structure, including the reconfiguration of the interchange ramps for that particular road. Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask a question. Is that part of the east-west arterial proposal, or was that along with that? Do you recall?
No, it's not part of that EA. It's part of the movement from the town road to a regional road, or the uploading and the change and the swap that's occurring there.
Received a report respecting the Queen Elizabeth widening project, which has been going on for several years now, from 7th Street Louth to the Garden City Skyway, and outlines the cost sharing that went on with regard to Martindale Road and Geneva Street structures, as well as the water and sewer relocation required and the traffic signal installation. A large tender awarded, over $7 million, for the Dominion Road sewage pumping station and a force main replacement in the town of Fort Erie. And two minor items, but they are part of the agenda here: a parking prohibition on a section of the South Service Road in Grimsby, and a stop-up and a closure of a section of the North Services Road in Grimsby. And as I mentioned to you, Regional Council does meet on this Thursday, and for your information, we are, several of us, going with the regional team to Niagara Week, starting on Sunday evening for my first meeting is 8:30 on Monday morning. I have a very comprehensive package. This year, it's all internal. The executive assistant with the chair's office has had significant parliamentary experience at Queen's Park, and rather than going to outside consultants, I think it tells a better, clearer Niagara story. Personally went through some orientation, and I imagine the mayor did as well, to that. They're trying to keep the number of people down to a fairly small number so the meaningful dialogue can take place. And for the first time, because of the work of the executive assistant to the chair, the deputy ministers and ministers will have the package of information a week prior to our actually being there. So we won't be taking time giving them information. We'll be more on dialogue in terms of how they view that information and moving Niagara forward.
Thank you very much. We look forward to that. I'm there Tuesday and Wednesday for a few of the sessions, but not Monday. So
Monday and Tuesday for me.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
we went talk about going on the GO bus.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm going to just take a sec here for a little commercial, and that is that the region's budget process begins on Thursday, June 7th, and that's part of that strategy, et cetera. So we'll be looking at budget guidance and other policy items at a special meeting at June 7th at regional headquarters in the regional council chamber. So we look forward to that discussion for the 2013 budget. So questions for Councillor Beatty at this time? All right. Thank you very much, Councillor, for your presentation. We look forward to seeing you on Thursday
Very good.
during that discussion. Thank you very much. The next item has been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor Kersey, that leave now be given to introduce the following bylaw and dispense with the reading of the bylaw. Being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the actions of council at its meeting held on the 22nd day of May 2012. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. Moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor Kersey, that the following bylaw have been considered a first time be numbered as follows. Bylaw 3266, 2012. Be now considered a second and third time and passed, and the mayor and clerk do sign and seal the same. Any rule of council to the contrary notwithstanding. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. Thank you. It has been moved by Councillor Durley, second by Councillor Kersey, that this regular meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for Monday, June 4th, 2012, unless sooner called by the mayor. All those in favor? Any opposed? None. That motion is carried. This meeting is adjourned.